Cheap traffic for just 1 cent per click. That's native, yes. And I know a lot of people are connecting cheap CPCs with native ads. And sometimes that's the case because you really can adjust it very precisely. And in this video, I will talk about cheap CPCs on native, when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense to use the cheapest CPCs on native. Hi everyone, my name is Marcel Sattler. I'm the founder of Purple Black, a native advertising only agency. So what we're doing on a daily basis is we drive performance campaigns on traffic sources like Taboola, Outbrain, Yahoo Gemini and many more. And today I want to share with you some insights about CPCs. So on native in general, you set a CPC, a cost per click. You tell the native advertising traffic source like Taboola or Outbrain how much you're able to or you want to pay for each clicks. Sometimes it adjusts a little bit due to an algorithm there, but you also can set up a manual bidding method. For example, in some countries like India or Pakistan, you're able to set a bid of just 1 cent per click. So you really just pay 1 cent per click, which is of course extremely cheap. But today I want to share with you some insights because, to be honest, sometimes it makes sense to buy the cheapest traffic out there, but sometimes it doesn't make sense. Just in general, unfortunately, the 1 cent traffic, which I already mentioned here in this video, is not available everywhere. So for example, when you set up in the US a manual bid with just 1 cent, nothing would happen. Your campaign will not spend any penny because you have in different geos different types of bids and of course different competitors. So that means the US, for example, is the strongest market for native ads with almost 50% of the ad spends globally. Therefore, you are not able to just set a bid of 1 cent and see big results, especially when you run performance campaigns. But of course, there are countries, like I mentioned before, like Pakistan, India and many more, with extremely cheap traffic. And here we come already to the issue. So before you're asking, where can I buy the cheapest traffic? You have to set it up from the very end. So that means you have to take a look about your goal, what you really want to reach. When you just want to buy cheap traffic for arbitrage, for example, then it might make sense to buy the cheapest traffic which is available out there. But when you run performance campaigns, when you are sending traffic to an e-com store, to a Shopify store or whatever, it might be not the smartest idea to just purchase the cheapest traffic out there because it will not convert. So first of all, when you're in arbitrage game and you're using Google AdSense on a website, then of course you will see to purchase the cheapest clicks out there. But in this case, you have to be aware because the cheapest clicks might be not very useful for your AdSense account quality. Because of course AdSense or Google here in general will ban you when you just purchase the cheapest clicks out there. And that's the issue of many advertisers. I read a lot of comments here on YouTube under my videos when I talk a little bit more about arbitrage. A lot of people told me, hey, I got banned from Google AdSense. And usually that's exactly one of the issues here. It's not the one and only issue, but it's one of the issues because people are just searching for the way cheapest traffic. And to be frank, sometimes the cheapest traffic is just trash traffic, which isn't valuable in any way out there. So therefore, that's one of the reasons, or it might be one of the reasons, why your AdSense account get banned, because Google will see the traffic which you buy isn't worth it. When you're running performance campaigns, so for example, when you want to drive traffic to your Shopify store or when you're searching for good quality leads, then usually the cheapest traffic doesn't make sense. And it's also the wrong question to ask yourself or ask your Taboola or Outbrain rep, how much must I pay for a click? That's here the completely wrong question because you have to set it up from the very end here. So what I mean by that is when you have, for example, a Shopify store, you know exactly what's your break-even point, you know when you're profitable. And you have to focus on these numbers. So it doesn't make sense to just take a look on the cheapest traffic because the cheapest traffic doesn't have any value for you if it is not converting. But instead of that, when you have a little bit higher valuable traffic and it's converting as hell, that's super useful for you. And therefore, first of all, you have to really take care about your numbers and see at the end of the day what's the max CPA until you break even, and what's a good CPA when you know exactly that's the green area where you're extremely profitable. And then you can recalculate everything because you have a lot of screws which you can turn here. You have, of course, you have the CPC, but you also have the click-through rate. You also have the editorial. You also have the offer page. You also have the offer itself, the free shipping, and many, many things more, which usually have a higher leveraging effect as just to change the CPC and searching for the lowest CPC out there. Let me give you a few insights more about this, because currently we are in November 2022 and we are just a few days before Black Friday. And of course the CPCs are higher as usual. But for most campaigns out there, which we are running, for example, that's not an issue, to be honest, because yes, the CPCs are higher, but also the conversion rate is way higher than, for example, in April. So we see currently higher CPCs, higher CPMs, but also way higher conversion rate, which is currently, by the way, insane. So we see that the Black Friday or the holiday season in general begins this year very, very early. And here we don't really have to care a lot about the CPC because of course we can reduce the CPC and play a little bit around. But that's just on very huge campaigns, the last optimizing things which we do, because usually we, as mentioned before, we have way higher leveraging effects by changing the editorials, changing the ads, changing the images, the headlines, and all that stuff. Important also to know is when we are talking about the CPC, on platforms like Taboola or Outbrain, they have an algorithm. So how it works, usually you set up a basic bid and the algorithm will change the bid automatically, for example, up or down. Of course, just in a certain percentage area, but the bid will adjust it automatically. And that's due to the performance because, of course, Taboola and Outbrain, they see way more data than you see on the surface. So they get a lot of data in the background with or for their pixel. And therefore, the pixel is usually a little bit smarter than we people are. And the pixel can drive usually better decisions than we are able to do it. That's especially useful when you run performance campaigns. So when you have an e-commerce store, when you're searching for good qualified leads, then it might make sense to use a smart bid campaign or a fully automatic campaign. But as mentioned before, sometimes it doesn't make sense to use smart bid or fully automatic campaigns, but it makes sense to use a manual bid and just set it as low as possible. But here, for example, here that's one part of arbitrage, but here you have to find the sweet spot. The sweet spot is, and it's a very thin area between trash traffic and a too expensive traffic. And it's a very, very thin area where you have to play a little bit around. So for example, we at Purple Black, we're not able to say exactly in the very beginning of a campaign, that's exactly the sweet point. Of course, we have some previous data, so we know approximately where it is. But at the end of the day, we have to test it. We have to test things out. We have to see what's happening when we decrease the bid, what's happening when we increase the bid, and what's the numbers out there. And you might already notice a lot of our work is just analyze data. So we're just sitting in front of huge lists, huge Excel lists, and just analyze all the data above every funnel step, because it's very important to understand the data, to understand the KPIs, and not just searching for the cheapest CPC. I hope in this video I can clarify a little bit more the CPCs and how it's working on native advertising traffic sources like Taboola and Outbrain. And in a nutshell, you see it's not always the smartest idea to just search for the cheapest CPC out there. I hope you liked that video. If so, I would extremely appreciate if you give me a thumbs up, and of course when you subscribe to my channel here on YouTube to receive more information about nothing but native. Have a good one. See you next time.